Hey everybody, my name is Derek Peterson. I'm the founder and CEO of OneWay.com. In this video, I'm going to do a little public service announcement for all the Christians and conservatives and alt-right characters out there that are trying to get their credit card payments processed, which has become very difficult with all the crackdowns lately, especially by Stripe and PayPal and all of them really. For those that don't know, a lot of conservatives have had their payments cut off. Websites like it's been several crowdfunding sites, Maker Support, and Freestarter, Patreon. BitChute was just shut down from Stripe recently, a video platform that doesn't even allow any pornography or anything like that on it, was shut down by Stripe. So there's some reasons for that aren't completely antagonistic towards conservatives, towards the right. Obviously, there's a lot of it that is. And so today we're going to talk about that and try to come up with some solutions going forward for the future. So first of all, Stripe is a gateway, right? They're not actually a bank or a processor per se. They're a gateway. They're partnered with Wells Fargo, is actually the one who does their payment processing. Wells Fargo is what's called a low-risk bank, a low-risk processor, very low risk actually. Stripe is a great platform. Their API is great. They're the only one that I know of right now that does split payments, which basically means like when you do these Patreon type models or these fundraising, crowdfunding type sites where like 95% of the payment will go to the user and 5% will go back to the company, less the transaction fees and things like that. So that's a split payment. They're the only ones that really do it all as far as split payments. They track all the taxes and all that stuff. So it's great. It's a great platform. For some reason, Wells Fargo doesn't consider those crowdfunding sites to be high risk in and of themselves. Most of the other ones won't even deal with crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is, I can understand why they think it's a high risk venture, these other processors, because it's a delayed payment. You make a payment and then like 2 months later or whatever, 3 months, however long they set the campaign up for, then all of a sudden the money gets pulled out of your card basically, right? And a lot of people might be short of money at that time, or they might have changed their mind about the donation or the support, or they might learn to hate the guy since in those 2 or 3 months, or whatever the deal, right? So it's a high likelihood of having chargebacks, and or credit card fraud, right? Like a lot of these sites have a lot of credit card fraud. Stripe, or Wells Fargo rather, doesn't really consider. I mean, Stripe's whole deal basically is their awesome API and these split payments. So that's, like Patreon uses Stripe, right? So obviously Wells Fargo doesn't consider that in and of themselves high risk. They do consider a lot of other type sites high risk. Obviously, they're not enforcing fairly. I'm sure they're being selective in a lot of ways, but I've had several calls with them, recorded phone calls. I told them they were recorded, and I pinned them down and said, you promise this is how you're going to do. You promise. I mean, the Freestarter guy who read something he wrote, he actually met with the owners of Stripe, and they assured him, "Oh, we're not going to cancel you." I know these guys are liars. I know they're lying to me. I recorded the phone calls. They let me record the phone calls. They said the phone calls were recorded. So I have it, from them promising me they're not going to just cancel us, that they're going to call me up first if they have a problem with some user. We're not going to cancel any users. We wouldn't have to cancel or remove any content off the site because of Stripe, but we might have to not allow someone to be served through them. But that's what they say. I don't really believe it. Of course, they're going to cancel us eventually. So anyway, Stripe, for whatever reason, chose to only work with one processor. I don't know if they did that intentionally to be jerks, or if through some venture capital or some deal they made that somehow they got locked into only having one partner. Doesn't seem like a smart move to me, but who knows what the deal is on the backside? I don't know. So the bottom line is Stripe is a low risk processor, right? It's just think about it like car insurance. So you have a really good driving record. You can, go to like say some insurance company, like Allstate or someone like that, right? If you have good, and just walk in their office, I need car insurance. Okay, sure, we'll get you car insurance, right? They're kind of a low risk insurer, right? Underwriter. But if you have a bunch of speeding tickets or DUIs or something like that, then they're going to boot you. They're not going to underwrite you. So you have to go to that's if you go to Allstate, all they got is Allstate, right? So you go to some other insurance broker, right? And they're going to have a whole bunch of options for you to choose from low risk like Allstate all the way down to the really or Progressive or whoever, and then all the way down to really, really high risk type stuff, right? Obviously, for the high risk insurer underwriter, you're going to have to pay more. It's very similar to that in this world with the credit card stuff, right? So Stripe is a low risk, or Wells Fargo rather, their partner is a low risk bank / processor. Okay. For a lot of people, that's not going to work for a lot of different business types. So it's a scary thing to work with someone like that. And then later, have your account canceled because everything you've done, all your data is gone. You're starting over literally from scratch. Say you have a couple thousand subscribers to something and then you just get shut off and then, you're done. You're starting over again from zilch. That's a very scary thing for anybody. So what I would recommend people do is there's a company, I used them like 10 ago, called Authorize.net, right? Authorize.net, again, is a portal, very similar to Stripe. It's not as good as Stripe. They don't have split payments. They say they're going to have split payments within the next 6 months or so. They're supposed to redo their portal. Their interface is terrible. I mean, it literally looks, I used them like 10 years ago for another business. It looks exactly the same as it did back then. And it looked terrible back then, right? And I was making fun of them the other day for it. And they're like, we know. But they apparently just got given a bunch of money, I think through Visa. And so they're dumping a bunch of money into the site. They kept bragging about their new site design. This is their new site design. It still looks like it's 10 years old. But anyway, what this is a portal, but they work with basically any processor, right? And so the cool thing about this is you get a portal with them. Say you're working with some other bank. They cut off your account. All that data, the credit card information, the names, all that stuff is in your portal still. Okay, it's still in Authorize.net. All you do is just plug in the var sheets. The var sheets are the codes you use for connecting you to different processors, right? I don't even understand how you do it all, but it's just some sheet they give you with all these codes on it. You give it to Authorize, and then they'll plug it into your account, and then you're running again. So you never really miss a beat. You have all the data's already there. You're not starting over from scratch. You just, it's good to have another one already on the waiting list in case something bad happens. Then you just plug them in. However, let me give you a little tips on this. So when you sign up for Authorize, okay, you don't want to do the all-in-one, right? They work with 7 banks directly that they process through. So you don't want to work with this all-in-one, right? Because what's going to happen if you're high risk, they're going to plug you into these different high risk, which really aren't that high risk, the ones that they work with, because they all rejected me. I wasn't stupid enough to just put it in like that, because what happens when you put it all in one, they're going to ask you for social and all the other stuff. It's a ding on your credit report. And then you get rejected and you just lost 5 points off your credit scores because of the stupid ding, right? And so what I would recommend doing is do this payment gateway only option. You can see here the pricing is $25 a month, 10 cents a transaction, I guess, or batch, and for batch. So sign up for the payment gateway only. And then what you do is you can contact, once you get your gateway set up, you'll be able to log into it. It's just you can't process anything because you're not connected to a processor, right? So then you can directly contact the highest risk processor that Authorize.net uses is a company called Payment Cloud. It's of the seven groups they work with, this is the highest risk group. They rejected me too, by the way. They all rejected me. I mean, they kind of, wasn't even close. And so they blew me off. But don't lose heart. There's literally gazillions and gazillions of high risk, very high risk processors out there. So all you have to do is call it, I don't want to give you any names, or I haven't actually I haven't had time to work on it completely yet, but there's tons of them out there, and there's a bunch of them that I could work with. But don't just throw away out, just don't throw applications out, because every time you throw an application out, it's 5 points on your credit score, right? So do your research. What you should do is just search on search engine and just put in something like high risk merchant accounts, high risk internet merchant accounts, something like that. And you'll see tons of them, right? Some really high risk ones that work with CBD oils and work with, you know, all kinds of nefarious stuff out there. Okay. So based on this type of stuff you're doing, make sure you match with what this high risk merchant or high risk underwriter is doing. Basically what it is they're using the same, there's only a handful or so of processors, right? And so all these guys are doing basically is underwriting it themselves. So they're saying, okay, you bank, we're going to take on the risk ourselves. If this is there's chargeback or there's some problem here, we're taking on that risk, and they're charging me, the customer, a premium for doing that. So I'm going to have to pay more than the standard like 2.9 or 2.7% plus 20 cents a transaction. You're going to pay more, right? So shop around for pricing too. But that's basically it. I mean, that's how you get around it. Obviously, this is a temporary solution. Obviously, they're going to try to do more and more and more to completely remove us from existence, right? And if you ever read the Bible, you know that's coming. But for now, this is a good solution, this authorized.net solution. You can try to call Payment Cloud. All they did is hook me up with some bank called Harris, I think was the name of it. And what I did is I requested a preliminary review, so I don't just keep applying for stuff and then getting rejected with dings in my credit report. And so I had them do a preliminary review, and they looked at it. They saw a couple people using foul language and declined me, basically, right? We don't allow any porn or nudity or sexually explicit stuff on our website at all, right? The representative just kept bragging about all the porn sites and stuff that they accept, assuring me that they would definitely accept me. She goes to oneway.com and sees a couple of bad words, and she's like, "Oh no, we can't help you." I'm like, "Are you kidding me? You just bragged about all this disgusting stuff that you're processing for, and you can't process this, Anyway, so it's not worth getting upset about this stuff. If over the next couple months, I'm going to finish up One Way. We're launching a Twitter clone. We're going to wrap up our YouTube clone by the end of this year. And over the next couple months, we'll see how things shake out with what they're going to do. And the government, I hate using the government to do this kind of stuff. But we'll see what shakes out over the next couple months. If there's no good solutions appearing, then we're going to build it. We're going to build a Stripe clone, and find processors and underwriters to carry us for the time being, which obviously will eventually get cut off also, and in which case we'll have to get our own bank going, right? So there's ways around all this stuff. We just have to do it ourselves. It's our fault for letting us get in this position where we're being dictated to by a bunch of very evil control freaks. And so we need to just keep our heads down, work hard, create these other options, and not whine and complain, and just get it done. And that's what we're trying to do here. So if anybody has any questions, feel free just to go to oneway.com and ping me over there /Derek. And I'll be happy to answer any questions anybody has. Thanks. Bye-bye.